All right. So thank you for that. Um, I will today I plan to talk a little bit about building a Doomsday library in the north, and particularly the one that's being built already in Svalbard. And as you can see, this is a worldwide effort, a global scale seed vault that was created in Norway to store and to maintain and preserve a bank of seeds for our future generations. So I'm going to start, this is a brief outline of just what I'll be covering during this talk. I'll start by a little bit of an introduction, talking a bit about climate change, the need for this vault. Then I'll talk specifically about this vault and Doomsday libraries. Then I'll go into a little bit more of the objective methods, results, discussion, acknowledgements, and then finally end with the Q&A. So climate change, food security, and the apocalypse. So climate change is a growing force, and today more than 1 billion people, nearly a seventh of the world's population, suffer from chronic hunger and malnutrition due to a lack of food. And one of the reasons for undernourishment and hunger is climate change, particularly drought conditions, as well as natural disasters and fires, which cause shortages in world grain production compared to its consumption. This creates a problem with food security, and nearly 800 million people were undernourished in 2017, according to a survey done by the United Nations. And a serious concern is that world hunger has been increasing in recent years. So the vast majority of the world's hungry lives in developing countries. So particularly Southern Asia faces the greatest hunger burden with about 280 million undernourished people. And in sub-Saharan Africa, the rate of undernourishment is around 23%. So poor nutrition does cause nearly half the deaths in children under 5, and 1 in 4 children suffer stunted growth as a result of food insecurity. Now, particularly XC2 conservation of crop diversity is something that's being proposed as a way to effectively combat climate change. And this is one way in which the North can actually play a critical role, particularly due to some of the factors in which the North is a little bit more humid and you have certain climate conditions that enable sustainable conservation systems to be developed. So it's been a historic priority, and it's been recognized in international law and policy that's being set out in the United Nations. And one particular area that this has been really influential in is in doomsday planning. So trying to plan in advance for the apocalypse, for when climate change takes over and leads to a critical period of growth in which there isn't any more growth and it starts to regress. So we talked particularly about Svalbard, which is this global seed vault located in Norway, and seed banks and doomsday libraries, which they've created. And essentially what it is these genetic diversity nests where they've been producing and adapting crops that can be conserved at a relatively low relative humid temperature. And it's located right at a geographic point in which it's optimal to store these crop plants in a way that ensures that it's preserved. So gene banks worldwide are used to conserve these plant genetic resources with the purpose of making them available for improving food and nutritional security through research, plant breeding, and education. In gene banks, genetic diversity is often conserved ex situ through different methods like seeds, living plants, and plant tissues. So typically what they do is they have well-dried vacuum-packed seeds of so-called orthodox species, which I'll get into a little bit later, which can stay viable at low temperatures for very long, predictable periods of time. So for many crops, seed storage is the optimal method for long-term ex situ conservation of genetic diversity, and Svalbard does a particularly good job of that. And we will be considering a little bit more about this efficacy, which is actually one of our main objectives. So the objective here is to really appraise the efficacy and value of this Svalbard Global Seed Vault as one of the only seed vaults in the North that's been developed as a response to the global food conservation efforts. So we evaluate some things like how effective it is. It's a free of charge long-term storage of place where we can put gene banks around the world, and it works sort of as an insurance policy against incremental or catastrophic loss of the original collection. So in, say, for example, a period of drought when one species of plant becomes completely extinct or something like that. So just here, the picture just shows the interior and exterior of the global seed vault. So in terms of our methodology, how we set about evaluating the Svalbard seed vault was to design it as a narrative review. So essentially this means that we take a little bit more of a creative license to evaluate a wide array of sources. We try to limit it to scientific sources because there's been a lot of popular media and sensationalization around the global seed vault. So it's been difficult to try to evaluate which is and which isn't evidence-based types of literature around the seed vault. We have the keywords there shown below, and we also follow the triphasic approach of identification, screening, and eligibility, all as per PRISMA guidelines. So in terms of results, offering the world a safe place for seeds is in accordance with the long-standing Norwegian policies for supporting biodiversity conservation, and stakeholders all over the world trust that Norway will take care of the seeds, but that's on a more national level. It opened in 2008 with capacity to store 4.5 million seed samples across the globe in 3 caves that they dug in the mountains. Which is located just right here, as you can see by this red circle, which is where the vault is located currently. And it has a deep permafrost securing seeds at the low temperatures. So even if the artificial cooling fails, it combines the fact that it's a remote location and calm location with good infrastructure, with the fact that they also have public services to really create a repository that's able to hold and support this type of infrastructure. So on the right here, what we have is we just have the geographic distribution of where these seeds originate from. So you can see there's a couple from Canada, as well as different parts of the world. And in total, the yellow circles sort of represent the international agricultural research centers, while the green circles are a little bit more regional in terms of the seed vaults there. So they take it from more regional sources rather than inter-regional sources. So in terms of numbers, after 10 years of operation, the number of deposited seed samples reached a little bit over 1 million. And the major part, about 2/3, have been deposited by international agricultural research centers. Largest depositors included US, Germany, Canada, Australia, the Netherlands, South Korea, and Switzerland. And the regional gene bank of the Nordic countries have also secured a significant part of its seed collection. They've also deposited seeds from places like Africa, so Mali, Nigeria, Sudan, Uganda, Zambia, Burundi, just to ensure that these are some of the areas that face a particular need. And so it's important now that the vault has samples of about 5,000 different species that are represented by over 150,000 seed samples here. So far, only one institute has requested seeds to be returned. So this is actually quite concerning because this happened in the autumn of 2015, which until then they had a gene bank in Syria, and then they lost it all of a sudden, and they needed the seeds from Svalbard to reestablish the new functional gene banks. So it's significant in the sense that this has been like the only occasion that it's actively being used, but there have been occasions when the vault has shipped back on 2 occasions the seeds that have been sown and multiplied at various sites, and this has been particularly used in drought conditions. So in the shortest possible time, it's been a very effective manner of getting the seeds back to its country of origin. So in terms of discussion, I'd just like to sort of emphasize that there's been sort of 2, it's not a big controversy, but it's been subject of some debate. There's been some questions about whether this volt is truly effective. However, the sort of way to look at it, or the positive way to look at it, is to sort of look at popular press and popular media and the way that it's being emphasized in terms of its attention in the media and its possible utility in the event of a major regional or global catastrophe. So is in the positive a symbol for the larger cause. And in terms of food sustainability and conservation, this is really important, but also in the sense that it's a valuable source for tourism and educational value to educate people on the value of having seed banks as well. The problems that that's been identified include its limited practical utility. There's only been 2 occasions where it has to be actually invoked, the seed shipment back to its country of origin, and the regional seed banks enjoy way more use than this international one. So in conclusion, the history of the Svalbard seed vault as a global protection effort is quite well established, and it's popularized by media as more of a symbol as opposed to its efficacy alone. And just based off of its current usage, it's objectively quite low if you think about it in terms of how you would see any other seed banks. But if you do consider the bigger scheme of things and look at the context of Africa's and Asia's, the value of a global seed vault is starting to become more and more apparent. I'd just like to acknowledge the University of Alberta Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry and the Antarctic Institute of Canada, as well as some of my co-authors here. With that, I'd like to thank you and open it up for any questions.